Welcome to another enlightening episode of HDL, where we delve into the mystical, the magical. Today, we're going to talk about that and occultic New Age practices. I'm your host, Jason Rigby, and today we have an extremely special guest. We've been going back and forth for several months now. She is an initiated priestess in a Hermetic order dedicated to the goddess Aset, a TikTok sensation, and the founder of the, I want to make sure I get this right, Pythian Mystery School.
You got it, yes.
Oh, cool. Perfect. With over half her life dedicated to studying and practicing magic and witchcraft, she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion, from her academic achievements in philosophy, theology, and TV production to her dynamic presence on social media. She continues to inspire and educate many on the magical journeys, and that's what we're going to get into today. Thank you, Ashley, and appreciate you being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason. Yeah, it is a pleasure to be here. I'm living like my dream of being able to talk about this stuff openly.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I had listened to another podcast probably 6 months ago, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. You know, and you just had so much knowledge. And one of the things that I always wonder is, do you have like a photographic memory?
Mm-hmm. Somewhat, yes. It's not as good as it was when I was younger, but I can memorize things fairly easily. Another thing that I have learned, and especially when it comes to ritual practice, is when I memorize something, it's very helpful if I'm standing in the correct direction. It's very interesting. You're adding like tactile features. So if I'm standing in one place, when I was younger, I used to chew gum to remember things. And now it's like,
right.
if I'm help my brain memorize by facing a certain direction.
That's so cool. Yeah. And we're going to get into those. I think that'll be really interesting. I want to kind of get into your journey. How old were you? Can you remember when you were kind of halfway interested in, you know, occultic practices or witches, or was there a time in your life when you were young, or was it when you were a teenager? When did that first happen?
I just want to let you know, my co-host Euphrates, the cat, might come in and out. He's very curious. He's standing right next to me now.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
I was 4 years old, and that is because I grew up in a very austere Roman Catholic household, and my babysitters when I was younger were 2 Benedictine nuns. And I have the very vivid memory. I was running through the dining room with my cousins, and the 2 nuns stepped in the doorway and said, "We'd like to talk to you." And we're like, "Oh no, we're all in trouble. What did we do?" And they asked us, the nun asked me specifically if I wanted to get married to Jesus. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And I thought about it, and I said, "I would rather be a priest. I don't want to be a nun." And she said, "Oh, sweetie, you're a girl. You can't do that." And I felt so rejected by God, by this institution, that like I wanted to touch God. Like I knew that the priest did something special when he was holding up the wafer. And that was the beginning of my journey. I had multiple times in my life where I tried to go back to Christianity because I lived in a southern state. I was in a Catholic school too. So like that was a part of my everyday life. I think the first time where I could say like I really got into magic, I was 14 and I went to a Renaissance fair, and I really wanted to get my palm read. And I found a woman who said, "I think you would benefit from doing a tarot reading." And I said, "I don't know what tarot is." And she said, "Tell you what, I'll do both of them for you for $20. And I was like, okay. So as soon as she laid out the cards in front of me, my heart started beating faster. I was like, this is so important. This is like I had seen these cards before, and in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like traverse mountains and go through oceans to find these cards. And I asked the woman, I said, "Where can I buy these?" And she said, "Barnes and Noble." And I was like, my heart sank a little bit, but I was also happy because they were attainable.
Right. That's so wild. So, you know, here you are being raised in a Roman Catholic church. You see the priests holding the way for transubstantiation, that whole process that they believe in, where it actually turns into the flesh of Christ. And then from there, you're going into a Renaissance fair with a tarot reader. And I know you do tarot readings now, and people can do that with you. And I encourage people to go on your Instagram and they can follow that in your website. And we'll get into that a little bit here. When you, like, as a child, were you always drawn? Because the reason I'm asking this question is because there's, like, for me, I've always been drawn to spirituality. It was always interesting to me. Whether I listen to things that were kind of boring for other people. Mm-hmm. Like, I would listen to a pastor at a church. I would listen to a priest. I would listen to, something on the radio or the TV. I was always kind of I could always be kind of drawn towards it. Tarot cards were, like you said, the minute I saw them, I was like, oh my God, there's something important here. And I feel like I have an extreme connection with them, Mm-hmm. What is that spiritual, like, flavor that you had as a child? Do you feel like it was something that, whether it was from past lives or whatever it may be, that was given to you? Like, why is it that you have these special gifts?
So there's a couple of things to break down. The first thing is, in my childhood, spirituality and religion was a part of life. It was life. You lived everything under that umbrella. There was no outside of religion. The second thing I would say to that is that the gifts that I have been given in this life, I have obtained through many lives, working towards the alchemicalization of my soul. And from a young age, I really loved Mary and the Holy Mother. When I was in third grade, the library at my school had a statue to Mary. And there was this program where you could, like, take her home for a weekend. And that was, like, the first time I had ever built an altar. And I was like elated. I was so excited to have her in my home. Like, I felt it was so special. And I would later find out about, synchronization and how religion spread throughout the world. And that energy, although in the light of Catholicism is Mary, is also the Greek Isis or the Egyptian Aset that I have a deep, profound relationship with and actually serve as a priestess, meaning that I am her handmaiden and I do her will here on earth.
I love that. What like, drew you to Mary? Is it the feminine energy, that aspect of it, the power in that? Like, where was that drawing to? Because that's not normal. Like, a normal kid, I'm saying this in a good way, not in a bad way, but, like, a normal kid is not going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to make an altar. And this is like, most kids are like, yeah, whatever. It's a statue, next.
Yeah.
So.
I went to Latin masses, actually. And so my
see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I saw the ceremony, and also Mary, Jesus's mom, was the only woman that I really knew about. My faith didn't really focus on Old Testament as much. So we weren't talking about, like, Ruth. I did know about Bathsheba and, like, other weird things my family would say, and I'd figure it out. It was in the Bible later, but
Jezebel.
Yeah. My mom used to tell me when she thought I was being a diva, she'd be like, who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba? I was like, I don't know who that is.
I know there's cat food or something. Yeah, but that's it. Yeah.
So I think that I understood inherently as a child that what was happening was important. And I was so disheartened and rejected by the church because within their paradigm, women really can't do much. Nuns, nuns do a lot of grunt work and working with kids. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have communion with what they were doing because they were talking to God. The priest is the one who can forgive my sins. Why? Oh, because he can talk directly to God. Well, I want to do that. Like, let me have that direct connection. And it's different than having a relationship, right? So, like, you can have a relationship with a spirit, deity, or God, but working with them and sometimes for them is a very different kind of relationship.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so you're 14, you have the tarot reading. How did you do in school with this? Did it start you on a journey? Were you introverted, extroverted? Like, were you doing tarot readings for your friends? Like, how did your high school go through?
Poorly. I was the weirdo. So tarot I would get in trouble with. And I knew if I brought this cards to school, I would get in trouble. And actually,
right.
My mom was mad that I hadn't even gotten a reading. So I had to hide the cards, and I'd hide the cards and I'd break them up into different parts of the school books and stuff like that in my room so she wouldn't find them. I learned palm reading. That was a lot safer and a lot easier within my friend group. And then I really got to shine my colors in public speaking in 10th grade when I learned about auras. And I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, like people's energy. And this was a place where I could safely express this interest within the context of school. And so I did. I remember that I finished explaining the different shapes of auras for everyone wondering. There's a circle, which is like the normal, ordinary aura. There's an oval, or like that is an egg shape, which is a higher vibrational aura. And then there's the square, which is like serial killers. And everyone was just staring at me. And this one kid named Will raised his hand. I was like, yeah, well, what? And he's like, how many drugs did you take to see these?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So
that was kind of like, so there was like no understanding. Like here you are, you're mesmerized by this. It's super exciting for you. You're learning, constantly learning. And then like everybody else being normal, you know, what normal is.
Catholicism.
Everybody's thinking you're the weirdo.
Yeah. Everyone's like, I went to mass like once a month in school and every Sunday. And then I had chapel, and it was so everyone just like, that's what you did. When I got older, I had access to the public library. And that is where I found the book of the Church of Satan. And it was this little red book. It is no longer there. I've gone back and looked for it. And I was like, what is the Satanic Bible? Like I was so scared to even touch it. And I did, and I read it, and I'm like, this is not that exciting. I was like very underwhelmed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were expecting like it to be like open up and then demons flying out.
Yeah, like the things that I had been taught, like in the fear mongering within my community. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So that's where like my high school ended. And then I really began to study. Like I had some natural abilities I knew about. I could go share energy with trees. I was able to regenerate myself with tree energy. I understood that I could, I had a boyfriend who was going to be an initiate for a mystery religion within the Cuban tradition. And he taught me some stuff that I learned. And I can't share a lot about that, but like I had like this one outlet. But this one outlet was I wasn't the initiate, he was. And so there was this feeling of like, oh, I still can't achieve being a magician.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because, yeah. So it's like, you know, because I'm a female, I can't do this in the church. Now I have this boyfriend. How old were you when you had this boyfriend?
Oh, I was 17.
Yeah, 17. I have this boyfriend. He gets to do this, and I still don't get to do this.
Yeah.
So it's just a constant of like, I want to learn, I want to understand, I want to know. When did you move away from home? When did you break out of everything and become like fully yourself, like really start to go into, because you, for your age, and I don't know how old you are.
I'm 32.
I presume, everybody's young to me. How old are you?
32.
Oh yeah, you look way younger. But but like one of the things, like when you're younger and you start to study spirituality, that's not something that like people do. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like people don't have tree energy and stuff like that. Like this is something that have special gifts and ability that have been given to you, of course, to serve others, you know, and to help bring love into the world. And a lot of people, they may feel like it's normal. The reason I'm saying this is because we have a lot of younger people that are listening, especially a lot of girls that are out there that are listening to this, and they think they're weird.
Oh.
Or they think, you know, like you said, like high school didn't go well for me. You know, then there's people out there and they get super depressed and they have depressed. You know, I get DMs all the time, you know, of younger people fighting depression. Especially it seems to be like teenage girls or, you know, girls in their 20s.
Yeah.
They're trying to understand spirituality because they're just having so many mental health issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. It's a hard world to live in as a young person right now. And it's even different than when I was like in high school. I found solace in reading. And I actually started reading philosophy when I was a senior in high school. Now, I definitely didn't understand it. And that's what I would say to the young people who are struggling with depression is like, you are stuck in a certain way of thinking. You need to learn how to think differently. I would also recommend using like chat bots like ChatGPT, ask it to be a philosophy professor and help you with some concepts. So you could start, because not everyone has access, how privileged I was to have a bachelor's in philosophy. But it is so important to start thinking differently, not just critically, but it's about the way you approach problems. It's the way that you view identity. Like it changes you as a person.
Yeah, 100%. And you're so right about that. A lot of people, the spiritual part seems to be kind of esoteric and sexy, but they don't understand like a lot of it comes from the philosophy side of things.
Oh, philosophy is everything.
Right. Go ahead and speak to that.
So philosophy grew out of the mystery tradition. So if you look at Plato and not Aristotle, but Socrates for sure, they were initiated into something called the Eleusinian mysteries. And these mysteries came out of ancient Egypt, and they were brought over, by Socrates, supposedly. And it was to understand the nature of the soul and how to elevate yourself. And so part of that, they were trying to bring to the ordinary people. And this is something that has taken me a long time to accept, is that ordinary people, have always been kind of stupid. And
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So there was no golden age of this. But what was wonderful about that time period is that initiates from different mystery traditions, whether in China, whether in Egypt or ancient Greece, there is scholastic evidence that these ideas were exchanged and even like just tweaked for the community that it was meant there. Like reincarnation, we know comes from India, and then it ends up also in Plato's Republic. And you're like, okay, so we see the bars here and the way that everything's moving. And that's where things start to branch out with Aristotle. And then you're starting to get like the philosophy of politics. You get the philosophy of war. You're getting the like moral philosophy and ethics. And things start to really exchange. There's some great diagrams online you can find if you look up like a philosophy tree, and it will show you how everything comes from philosophy, because philosophy is the building of foundation, understanding, and knowledge. So it is from a philosophy we have created politics. It is from philosophy we have created law.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Is where do our thoughts come from?
Yeah, consciousness.
And if you really think about it, a lot of it nowadays is from marketing, social media, stuff like that.
I see what you're
like
saying.
What's important. These things are important to us, so we develop a whole thought base around it. And then of course, I like Rudolf Steiner a lot. So
yes.
there's spiritual attachments to that and beings and stuff like that at different levels. But one of the things that I really think is interesting when you understand philosophy, you kind of step out of what you're, especially on these phones, this little screen, of what you in your echo chamber of what you're looking at constantly and your friends and everything else on Instagram or whatever it may be. You actually can go talk to somebody from, I kind of look at it as like talk to them, but you actually can go talk to somebody from the 16th century. You can talk to somebody through the French Revolution and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. I'm reading Descartes' book, Rene Descartes' book right now. And, for me, I think philosophy, and it's so important that you said this because everybody wants to be like, I want to be a witch or I want to be, and not understanding the basis of what it is because if you can understand different forms of philosophy and understand how to think, then from there or know thyself, that was part of it. Mm-hmm. Then you have this whole ability to be able to absorb information from, whether you're involved in a mystery school like you have, or, whatever it may be, you're able to like look at information kind of 360. Like you can put the information in the middle and then you're able to look and think around it, and then be able to understand it. And that's a gift that you have, which is awesome. I want to get into your mystery school. Yeah. What inspired you to create a mystery school? Obviously, it's probably because you were a girl, you weren't allowed to do anything. All the boys were able to do everything. So I'm going to start my own mystery school and then I'm going to do my shit. Is that what it was? Or?
It was COVID. I was stuck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I achieved TikTok fame in 2019 and I just continued to grow. And there were a lot of people asking like how to learn from me. So I started with a Patreon, which I did not like. And I moved it off of that platform. And so I have lots and lots and lots of books and lots of time that I have spent reading them and being able to help someone achieve what they're looking for. And this has been like a transformational journey of mine. It's not just sharing the knowledge. It's people today are looking to achieve goals. So for example, a lot of people ask me like, how do I strengthen my intuition? And the answer is, do you even know what intuition is? It's a little Socratic there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's awesome.
And most of the time they don't know. And what intuition is an unconscious patterning made to help identify patterns. So your brain unconsciously goes through thousands and thousands of memories, files, pulls out information and gives you a feeling. Intuition is not a feeling. The feeling is the symptom of your intuition. So in order to get better with and more in tune with your intuition, you need to start contacting and working with the unconscious mind. So that looks like a lot of times automatic writing is easy for people. We can do dream analysis. And that is what I have been working towards on Mystery School. So yes, I will teach you how to do rituals. Yes, I will teach you how to cast spells. It's all about what you want to do, which is why I take personal applications for students. You don't just sign up. I want to know who you are. What are you interested in learning and how can I help you? Because I know quite a lot, but I don't know everything. And you might be looking for something that I could best refer out. But for me, I approach magic in 3 ways. One, we need to understand like what it is, understanding how magic works so you can use it properly. The second thing is going to be understanding psychology, your psychology. So ritual works because you're unconsciously impregnating the mind with an intention or a spiritual act, and then it manifests in a certain way. And the third part of it is a morality. Like, how are you going to use, because everyone's like, create your own reality, which is great, but like, what is your reality? And how Like if it's so selfishly focused on making money and being attractive and doing all these things, where's the spirit? It makes me very frustrated to see the spirituality being pulled out of occultism and magic in the modern age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of that Armand spirit, the materialistic, this is all we got, atheist, that type of, this is it, you're going to die and you're done. I think and that creates so much pressure in somebody, and then you have Instagram, where everybody's,
performance
19
based
in Bali. Yes, exactly. Yeah. 100%. I do want to get into what you can tell me about, because I think this will be interesting for people, the initiated priestess and hermetic order dedicated to the goddess Aset. What is that?
I can't tell you a lot about it because I took an oath of secrecy.
Right.
But that is how I earned my title. So I knew I was a priestess in 2019. I had finished the trial. So you have a lot of young listeners, trigger warning for young people. I had a dear friend whose brother was schizophrenic and committed suicide. And they found a lot of unusual occultic things in his room. I don't know why I did this. I turned to my boss and said, hey, I need to take Friday off. I need to go help my friend through this. And so I flew to help her and her family. And I just was there as a place of service, both to the family, help them cook, clean. And then also I set up the memorial, and I had to do some magical stuff too. Like some of the stuff that he left there did have ties back to his spirit. And the spirit was coming in and out of the house, which was a problem, causing a lot of distress. The family members would see him. So I had to break this mirror and distribute the pieces. And then 6 months later, I learned about this particular group, and I knew that this goddess was important to me. I was like, this is it. This is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. It's my time. I get to be the initiate now. And I did. I found the group through a friend, and I applied. I had to go through 3 rounds of interviews to be accepted. And then I was given a location and a date, and I went. And it was, some people who've been initiated say like, oh, I read about the rites beforehand. I didn't. I went in completely blind. I wanted the 100% pure experience. And it was, I didn't really understand what a trance was until I went into that. A trance is like when you are moving in the world around you, but your consciousness is in the passenger seat. And that was really cool.
That's so awesome. It's really brave. That's something that seems to be a lot of people would be fearful of that. Like they'd be fearful to fly out and go see, and then what are these occultic symbols? What was he going through in his life? And then to go just blindly into initiation. So when it comes to spiritual stuff, you don't seem to be very fearful towards it.
I love magic. Magic is the most important thing to me, and I want to continue. I think that there's always learning, and not just in the I am purifying my personality and becoming a more virtuous person, but also to be able to contact and see the world around me as a spiritual place rather than a material one is special.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like nowadays, and I know there's always has been, but Law of One, the Raw teachings talks about like these negative entities that can attach themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you see a lot of that when you're doing readings and stuff? Is it more now, or do you think it's just the same and people are acting, because I think the dumbness, what you were saying, like a lot of people are dumb or like act like they're NPCs. I always think of Wall-E. Remember the cartoon? Yeah. And they're just floating around like drinking milkshakes.
Yeah, the zombification.
Yes, it's the zombification. Do you think a lot of that has to do with like spiritual forces? Like when you look at, whether it's witchcraft or ceremonial magic or Western Hermeticism, what are some of the things that, negative entities, do you believe that they play an active role?
So this is my opinion. I follow the belief that comes from Aleister Crowley, and I don't love Crowley in a lot of ways, but I do like him for this, that every demon that is in the Lesser Key of Solomon is a force that exists within you, and it can be activated and come alive, just as there are 72 angels inside of you. Now, I think a lot of people, you will find, to your point, that some people will gravitate towards groups. For example, the BDSM community. There is an angel or a force or a demon, I don't know what it is, a spirit that creates from the community, is created and watches over it. And it has,
I see what you're saying. Right.
Has societal rules. Like there's just like the way the friend group is, like there's an energy that's there. And that can activate the negativity in someone else. To have an external attachment, I have seen it. It's not as popular as people would like it to be. It has to be really, really bad. I mean, this person needs to be like a severe alcoholic. And even then, like the people who are suffering from addiction, which I think most of the time addiction is a spiritual issue that can be biological too. The spirit is kept alive, not just by the person, but by the environment. So that's why people can't go into the bars after they've been like sober for 6 months, a year, or even 10 years, because that force will start exerting power over them. I think those are like the most negative ones that I interact with. Possession, as people would like to see it as in the film, I've only seen once. It's not pretty. It's not sexy. You don't want to see that stuff. Like maybe you do, but you don't.
And I mean, I've had a lot of, some people are kind of weird that way, but I've had a lot of people talk about, like darkness or negative entity, or, kind of feeling like there's heaviness on them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
When I've opened up with people or have had conversations with them, from a spiritual sense, and they're like, yeah, I kind of feel like there's a heaviness or something, and then they get nervous and they start praying, because like you're Catholic, so, that's what you do. Or Christians or whatever. A lot of people, here in America have Christians. So you start praying to Jesus, like save me, help me,
Okay.
What are some of the things that you've seen? Yeah, exactly. And I like your approach from Aleister Crowley. That's amazing. And he gets a bad rap a lot of times, and I've read a lot of his stuff, and there's different formats in the way that somebody goes, and everybody's human, in the way that they do things or don't do things. But I encourage everybody. It's so funny. I mean, I don't want to rant here, but it's like a lot of people will tell me the Quran, it's so horrible. And, Islamic religion, and then I studied Sufism for a while, and I'm like, you don't understand. Like you need to delve. If you think something's horrific or bad, go study it.
Yeah, you should.
Like you did. Like you read the Satanic Bible. A lot of Satanists that I know are atheists.
Oh, yeah,
which
you're
is
right.
Wild. People don't realize that, but a lot of Satanists are atheists.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of look at it as like, you're the law. That's what you are. Do what thou wilt. But it's so interesting to me that your braveness and being able to just run right into these things and not. Do you ever get fearful with any of this?
No. Usually what happens is there's overconfidence, and then it's like, uh-oh, you have to fix this. And then I was like,
No, I get that. Yeah.
But going back,
it's because it's on the other side too. A lot of people. Rudolf Steiner says that we're just angels in training. Because we're going to be higher beings eventually and become angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible.
Do you feel like on the positive side of things, on that positive entity, how did you relate at all with angels and stuff like that when you were growing up with the Catholic Church? Any of that?
There's one saint I really liked. Her name is Saint Rose of Lima. And it's people don't understand what virtue is. And so in a lot of mystery traditions, especially if you look at Steiner, right, it's about cultivating virtue. In the Catholic side, you'd call that the Beatitudes and like the 7 heavenly virtues. But in the Greeks had their own version of it. So when you look at a saint. They had done something so virtuous that like stunned me. And it was this woman who was from a very wealthy family, and she cut off all her hair and rubbed peppercorns in her face to make herself less attractive to the male gaze. And as a teenage girl, I was like, what the hell? That's insane.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So that
was it just because of her dedication to understanding, what she was studying, that she didn't want to have any.
So, this is like, deep. When I saw
I love it.
how many martyrs there were, and I was like, okay, they died for Jesus, but then like they go to heaven. So I guess it's not that bad. But this chick who for her entire life ruined her face and burned her face not to be attractive, that's a kind of punishment I didn't understand. And I didn't understand like the self-flagellation and stuff like that. And that's what really mystified me. And I still don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's like this, I think a lot of people, and this goes for both sides, especially in this younger generation, I'm seeing a lot of narcissism.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In the form of it. And I think a lot of mental health comes from, I was homeless before, I went through a lot of stuff. I'm successful now. I have several businesses, all that. But I when I was at my worst, I was my most narcissistic. All I did was think about how bad people are and how bad my life is. And all I did was think about myself.
Yeah.
And this is something like with witchcraft and magic is in service to others and doing things for other people and having a purpose and having initiations. And this is what I want to talk to you about mainly, before we're done with the podcast. What type of purpose did this give you in your life? And like you already talked multiple times about serving others with this, but how do you feel like in your life, like what type of purpose did it give you?
The personality or the lower part of the soul, the appetites, as Plato would call them, are a bottomless pit, can never be satisfied. And you see that today with people who have everything, billionaires, and they resort to horrible things like pedophilia. The only way to ever satisfy the appetites truly is spirituality. And I'm not talking about the spiritual ATM, give me what I want. No, it's about understanding that it's not about you. I cannot tell you, Jason, how many times things have happened to me. And I've been like, Goddess, why? Like #main character syndrome. And the answer I got was, not about you. Don't worry about it. And that's crushing in a way. I'm like, oh, it's not about me.
Right. Yes.
And
yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, so if it's not about me, it's a lesson I had to learn, because what we understand is that, your mood affects other people. Well, that's true on a scientific level. Your bioenergy field interacts with other people and leaves residue. When you are a negative person, it spreads. When you're a positive person, it spreads. And I don't want to use the word positive here. I'd rather use the term virtuous. People can think of this in terms of kindness, like the pay it forward or pass it on kind of energy. And that is something that we're missing in our world. People are very much in a hedonistic mindset, like let me do what I want with no consequences. That's not how the natural world works. There are consequences for things. And we have come to Earth to learn something. I know what I have come to learn. If you're interested in what you're supposed to learn, I suggest you look at your natal chart and you go find a professional astrologer that you like. But my purpose is here to learn about service and also be a public figure. So that's an interesting place, right? Like keeping that ego in check and remembering that it's not about me, it's about the goddess. And that is what it means to be a priestess. I see a lot of pseudo priestesses in the online space, and I am always suspicious because it's not about you. And this card represents what? Addictions, over sexualized energy, mistakes that we refuse to learn from. And that's where I get very suspicious when I see people who are using spirit as a spiritual ATM. It's not about this realm. True, genuine spirituality, which you're not going to get bored of. I've had people come to me from mystery school who say, well, I've learned everything. I've done all the candle spells. I've made the bags. What else is left?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's nuts. That card that you just showed is so amazing too, because it shows you're spot on. It shows the masculine, the feminine, the male and the female, and they have loose chains on. Mm-hmm. So that they have freedom, they have free will, but they're so chained down by what's going on. That's such a beautiful card. I appreciate you sharing that.
There's one last thing I'd like to point out about him. So a lot of people ask me what the inverted pentagram means. From the Western esoteric tradition, a pentagram that is reversed means I exalt the material over the spiritual. When a pentagram is pointed upwards, it means I put the spiritual before the material because the other elements of the pentagram are underneath the spiritual one.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, I could listen for hours on tarot. It's just amazing. So I want to get into, for the few minutes we have left, I do want to get into the occult unveiled.
Yes.
So how does that, what is your beliefs and practices around that, and what motivated you with that?
I was very blessed to have a relationship with a man named Michael Simon, who I used to work for as an assistant to the director. I was also his development assistant in television. And during COVID, I told him, hey, I kind of TikTok famous now. So I'm going to go do that. And he's like, wait, you're what? And we talked about it, and there was this idea to create a podcast and to exhibit and explore different facets of spirituality from around the world, from genuine practitioners. And that was a beautiful project. We have over 60 episodes ranging from Voodoo and Hoodoo. We talk about Hinduism all the way up into, oh my gosh, we talked about Hecate and Lilith, like everything under the sun.
I know, and I can tell, you're just you're like the Manly P. Hall book, just full of information from all around the world. That was kind of one of the things that he did, when he just traveled and studied all the mystery schools. In the podcast, I know there's some controversial things in there, and I encourage people to look it up, the Occult Unveiled. And there's some frightening spiritual beliefs for some people and practices. How do you tell people when they feel like something resonates with them? How do you tell them to go in that direction? Do you tell them to go in that direction? Do you tell them to study all about it? But, because there's so many different forms of spirituality out there. I mean, you've got the Eastern traditions, the Western Hermeticism traditions, you've got magic, witchcraft, you got all it all. Mm-hmm. When somebody feels like, I feel like I'm I'm the weirdo, I'm the spiritual, I like spiritual stuff. What direction should I go in? Whether it's mysticism and Catholicism or Sufism, whatever it is. How do you, when people are starting to ask you questions, how do you direct them or what do you tell them to do?
So the first thing I would say is you need to find an elder or an initiate of that system. So, for example, if you wanted to be initiated in the Catholic Church, you go find a priest. If you wanted to learn about witchcraft under, let's say, Wicca, you'd go find a Wiccan priestess. Now, I know that's not available for everybody because we all live in different places. So then I would say, if you don't have that in your area, I would look for books. I like Goodreads personally, and you're welcome to scroll through and find authors who have written books that you like. And then research them, see if they're a real person. I would also say, before anyone dives into this, please, please, please study the warning signs of a cult, because now we're not talking about the occult. We're talking about a cult. And
right,
there's been, timeless throughout history, many different cults of different religions. And whenever you are going to be in this space, you need to be self-aware of any kind of financial stress that they may be putting you under, any kind of isolation that you're experiencing. And I would also look for issues of like over authority, people who think they can never be wrong, because a true spiritual leader will be someone who is humble and isn't ideally there to exalt themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, on your website, what's your website again? I want everybody to understand it and know what your website is.
Sure. So my website is Pythian, which is Pythian, mysteryschool.com.
And that talks about the mystery school on there. You have, you had tarot readings I saw on there.
Yes.
That was super cool. You could pick it and put it in your card and all that stuff. I played around with your website. It was super awesome. I kind of want, like, what are your future endeavors? What are future plans for your mystery school, your work, for you? What is it that your vision and for the future for you?
So the first thing is I'm moving Mystery School onto a new platform. It's called Circle, and it allows for a lot more community, because that's what people have been asking for. Is it's hard to cultivate a community. You've got so many different apps out there that you're fighting against. So that's like a big part of where I'm moving, where we can have a more integrated community. I have been practicing I practice 2 forms of magic. And so now I'm working on something out of Isis magic, which is also a hermetic system created by Isadora Forrest in collaboration with the Fellowship of Isis out of Ireland. And I have been learning that and creating what's called the Mystic Moon Circle, which is an in-person ritual event where you actually get to participate and be a part of the ritual. I teach you the hand movements. I teach you the prayers. And then otherwise, honestly, Jason, I don't know. I'm in this weird place in my life where I'm trying to surrender to spirit and show me the direction that I'm supposed to go in. Hollywood's kind of at a stop right now for many different reasons. And I'm not sure where I'm being called to next.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, obviously, you'll always have to be a teacher, because that just runs right through you. You can see that, I mean, you probably, are you happy when you teach?
I love teaching. Teaching is like a performance.
Yeah, exactly. That's super cool. Well, that's awesome. I encourage everybody to hop on your website and look at that. I know you have a TikTok and Instagram. We'll put those in the show notes.
Thank you.
The last question I have for you, though, is, how do you maintain balance, or do you, like, with personal growth or with your spiritual practices, and also giving yourself to others so much, and oh
my gosh, yeah,
because you're guiding and teaching others and running a school. Is there balance at all? Is it like fuck balance? Like,
you have to have balance.
Where's that at in your life? And have you learned anything from that others could know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think the first thing is like, I got a Google number. So clients get the Google number. They don't get my real phone number. That's number one. The other thing I would say is that there's a balance also of the body and the mind. And I've spent a lot of time balancing out my health and understanding, like, because I spent so much time up here and out here that I was neglecting this body. And that is a big balancing part. And that means it might be things like you might not fit into societal beauty standards anymore. You might be a little bit different. And I think that's the whole point, is if you're studying this stuff, you're going to be weird. And it's okay. It's kind of...
Yes, 100%.
I think the other thing I would say to that is, like, balance is... So when you look at balance, it's a black and a white pillar most of the time. And this is a representation of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. I have all my fun money goes to therapy and acupuncture. I think you'll also discover on this path that you will lose friends, and that's okay. Because like I talked about in the beginning, yes, that you have everything inside of you. And as you start activating those different portions of you, less and less well, other people fill holes in your lives, and it makes your life very simple, actually. And then you might learn you're addicted to drama. So that's like a whole nother unpacking.
Yeah, there's just layers and layers. It's like onions. It's just unpacking. I've lost so many friends, like you said, because I just don't want to go watch an NFL game. You know what I mean? I'm not a normal dude. I'd rather read a book or, I'm pretty introverted. So, I can speak. I like speaking, and I'll speak in front of people and stuff like that. So I can be extrovert when I need to. But I want people that listen to this, because I get DMs so much about this, is like, you're not weird. This is just who you are, and embrace. Because, I don't believe that we're put here by accident in this moment.
No, definitely
not. And I believe that we're divine beings, and there's a reason that you're here, and that whatever normal society puts on you, screw all that. Like, where does that come from anyways?
Yeah.
And that, we're literally snowflakes. We have that individuality, each of us, in a great way, to be that reflection of source or God, or whatever people believe, in that. And that's what's beautiful. And that's what I loved about when I listened to you on that podcast. And then I went through your website and your TikTok and all that. It was just so cool to see somebody that is just following the path and doing it, and being, very brave. That's very brave of you. Like, you're not fearful. No. Which is, fear is the number one thing that people face. You're like, I ask you that multiple times. You're like, no, I'm not afraid. No, that's cool. I mean, how many people think of these stuff as like horror shows or horror movies, or there's occult symbols. Oh my God, there's a pentagram, You're like, let me see that.
Let me see that.
Let me study it. What is that? Yeah. Yeah. So it's just so cool. And I appreciate you and what you do and how you're helping others, and you're a teacher, and that's awesome. And, people need to embrace that and understand that. What's your, just before we close, what's your TikTok or Instagram so people can follow you?
Sure. So it's Pythian Priestess. I know that's like a big scary name. So it's Pythian Priestess. And one last thing, Jason, for all those young people out there, remember, it's about context. So you're weird in normal society, which is not where you want to be anyway. When you're in the context of
that's so good.
A spiritual community, it becomes the new normal. So it's all about like where you're perceiving things from.
I love that. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. And we're going to put everything in the show notes. We encourage people to do that. I know you'll be by the time you're 40, I'm pretty sure you'll have a book out and everything else.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know you're, I mean, to be able to have the knowledge that you have, we didn't even break into any of that stuff. Get heavy into that. I'll have to have you back on the podcast at some time in the future.
Thanks,
but appreciate you, Ashley. Thank you very much. And I know you've been a help to a lot of people today.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day.